Hi, I'm Daz. I'm the producer of The Drift, and what I've been doing the last sort of couple of days is looking at The Drift as a professional shoot, or as a professional production. What I mean by that, because that's saying that we're not professional. Well, no, what I'm talking about is the actual costs, because the Drift itself, the real cost to us was around about £5,000 to make, which a lot of people say, oh, that's not much money, and it isn't much money to make a movie. It's still a lot of money for someone to pay, which is obviously what we did. But sort of thinking about the future and how we break that, not break that cost down, but how we break down all the things that we did, and how much would it cost if it was a commercial project. And I think that's interesting to do, because for anyone who's interested in going sort of commercial, to sort of look at the real-time costs of how much it would cost, but also to produce a film of the production level that we produced, how much would it cost the industry? And that's also interesting, because it's a case of, well, if it costs that much for the industry to do it, would they want to do it, if you know what I mean? Because without trying to make our film sound rubbish, which it isn't, it's brilliant, it's still coming out as a lot of money. So I'll give you an example. £5,000 is what it costs us in terms of catering and materials, basically, the ones that we had to pay for. But I've worked out the labour cost, again, kind of sort of general guesstimates, which I'll break down in a moment, but it was £130,000, and that was over the whole time. And that currently doesn't include script costs, my cost, as it were, as producer. Not to say that I'm more expensive than anybody else, but the amount of hours that I put in terms of that. If you think that the actual time on set, the total number of days that we were actually on set building, was around 45 days. Although it was spread over 6 months, over that 6 months I was working on it every day, thereabouts, if it was in the evening or certainly the weekends. So that would obviously ramp up the cost a little bit. We kind of broke down the sort of labour cost down into sort of skilled, extras, crew, that kind of thing. So without getting down too deep into the numbers, because it's just a guesstimate at the moment, but working along the lines that a skilled person looking online and stuff would generally earn about sort of £20 an hour, versus unskilled, which is say £10 an hour. So unskilled, what does that mean? It doesn't mean they're rubbish. It just means that they turn up as they are, and will happily paint or dress up as an extra, or do whatever they're asked to do, basically, versus a skilled person who will come in with tools and will know that they're going to build that, or they are going to film this. That's the kind of difference that we're talking about. That's generally how it works in the industry. So an extra in the industry would earn less, obviously, than an actor. So the actors go under a skilled. So breaking all that down, like I say, but it's all sorts of considerations to have with even just with the labour side, because I've sort of worked on sort of 9 hours a day, and then done that as every day. And now straight away, I know for a fact that some of the days we didn't work 9 hours at all. Some days we worked a lot more than that. So it's kind of sort of a law of averages, and there's lots of, it's just a ballpark look at those types of costs. Other things that I haven't included at the moment is how much it would have cost to rent the space. Again, because the reality is it was rented over 6 months, but we only actually shot and built the set and shot was 60 days. So if you divide that into weeks, that's 12 weeks, because you have a 5-day week, 2 days off, and what have you. So that would be a 12-week, 3-month shoot rather than 6. That's half a time, arguably, we weren't doing anything on set, but that's because we had got jobs. People out there, getting on with their real lives. So that would be condensed. And scaffolding as well, which we got for free, that was only brought in about halfway through that time, and we only did so many days, so that would come down in cost as well. So working those things out. An interesting point, though, was the materials that we got for free, particularly the aircraft scrap pieces that we were able to borrow. And we were able to borrow them simply because of the type of movie that we're making. It wasn't a commercial film, otherwise we'd have got charged for them. And that's interesting, because I was watching a diary yesterday about, it's easy for you, Dad, people that can get you bits of planes and things. Well, that's true, and that's why I say about only make a movie you can make. But then it got me thinking, because a lot of the set wasn't part of planes, and it was actually space corridors and spaceship, and we had to build those from nothing, from rough designs, Lego designs and stuff like that. And it got me thinking that actually it's all about the path of least resistance. Now, I made a film that had spaceships and could use bits of plane to make it look authentic. But it reminds me of a conversation I had with a very high-profile producer at Pinewood, who I won't name, just in case it makes it all liable. But anyway, we were talking about a film that we were making that was going to involve a submarine, and I knew of a submarine that I could go and look at and stuff like that. And I was saying, oh yeah, we could probably get it for 2 days. We could probably film on for 5 days and all the rest of it. And he just said, well, why, Daz? Why would you do that? And I was a bit confused. I said, well, because that's a submarine. He said, well, you know, all you do is spend 1 day. We'll go down there. We'll photograph it all. We'll film all different angles and all stuff just to get so we know exactly what it looks like. And then we'll build it. And I was completely like confused. This is like 4 or 5 years ago as to why he was saying that, because in backyard productions and stuff that I do, then well, that would cost more money to go and build the set than to go and use it. And this is the big difference between the industry and backyard productions, is that it's actually cheaper to build a set than it is to go to a set, because first of all, you don't have to rent a real submarine for 2 weeks. You can make one and go as long as you like, so you're not paying rental for that. It's cheaper to rent a warehouse than it is to rent a submarine. So there was that. Also, when you build a set, you can take a wall away, so you've got more room to shoot and what have you. And the fact is that the submarine is all well and good. I assume it's all sorts of pipes and tubes and stuff. And once you know what they look like, you just build the pipes and tubes. On a submarine, there's special pipes and tubes because it's got a job to do. But for a set, it's just got to look like it does. And this is what we had with the Drift. The spaceship that we built was just made out of cardboard tubes and wood and all that with wires. And then we sort of embellished it, augmented it with bits of aircraft. But they didn't have to be bits of aircraft. They could have been bits that looked like bits of aircraft, if you know what I mean. Like the dials and the instruments, a lot of them you don't see move. So why do you have a real instrument? Just have one that looks like an instrument. And we could have got away with that. So if I was to add although I got all those bits of aircraft for nothing, which I had to give back, I think to actually have built what we had from nothing might have doubled our budget from 5, say, to 10,000. But if you're now talking from a commercial point of view, that's nothing compared to the £130,000 it is on the labour. So 130 grand on labour and 10 grand on building the sets. That's nothing. Now, of course, if you're looking at a major budget, then you'd increase that set budget to obviously make it look even better, etc. The other thing that was interesting was that looking back at all the sort of what we built on what weekends, it felt like we were building every weekend, in which we weren't, was the lack of a production designer, because we didn't have a production designer for this film. As much as I wanted to get one, I was unsuccessful. So what we had to do instead was I had to basically sort of come up with most of the design. Certainly on the large scale, not talking about the set dressing, we managed to get some really good insights. Some guys, Ed, Sandra, and that they did some really good sort of help the actual set dressing and look and feel. That was great. But in terms of the actual shape of the ship, both the Deliverance and in the Drift itself, I had to sort of come up with that and took lots of ideas in different places. But the trouble was, of course, I was being spread very thinly because I was also having to sort out script work and casting and scheduling and all that kind of blah. So that had a visible effect that you saw at the beginning of the set building process. We were building a lot of sets very quickly, and then it sort of dried up a little bit. As it was sort of, well, we'll paint that, we'll try this, and we're starting to so effectively we're going into the concept phase, the production design phase, in the middle of a set build. But once we found our way, which didn't take too long, to be honest, it wasn't a major disaster. Once we found our way, then suddenly it all ramped back up again. So if you sort of take that element out, that would condense the amount of set building time that we actually used. So that's sort of an interesting point that with a production designer, which obviously you absolutely do need, that's a no-brainer. Although it didn't stop us, we saw the consequence of not having one. But also, it demonstrates that we could build it in a shorter period of time if we did all that production design and concept work before we go to set. So yeah, it's quite interesting how that sort of pans out, just looking at some of the figures. So, if I was to make a real movie, to be honest, I thought the budget for the whole film, if it was commercial, would be about 150 grand. And I haven't done everything yet. I haven't done how much it would cost to rent the cameras, etc. Although we didn't have too many. But or the script, to be honest, how much it would cost, what's Sue's rates for script writing, how much it is per page or per draft, I don't know. So, we still need to sort of work those things out as well. But I thought it was an interesting sort of a bit of a shock, to be honest, in terms of how much it costs in labour. And those are pretty stingy rates as well, I hasten to add. It's not quite minimum wage, but it's not far off. So, actually, I don't even know how realistic that is. £130,000. Interesting. I just thought I sort of would mention that, and perhaps I'll update you when I get the full cost. But I reckon my guesstimate at the moment now is if I was being really including absolutely every single thing I can think of, I think it would be £200,000 to make this film. That's a lot of money. So, not sure if it's worth doing the industry thing or not. See, won't find out.